So, hey, everybody. My name is Jonathan. I'm with Assemble, and today I'm having a chat with Patrick from Fiable. A long time ago, myself and Patrick met on the kind of the construction technology scene in Sydney, Australia, and we've been keeping in touch and keeping an eye on each other's progress ever since. So I thought Patrick would be a great person to have a chat with in terms of the construction scene, particularly there in Australia, but worldwide, what's going on in the kind of the subcontractor and how people are, I suppose, putting their best foot forward when it comes to bigger projects. And yeah, anyway, Patrick, why don't you give us a little intro to yourself? And yeah,
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me. So quick background. So Patrick Connolly, I started my career as most do in construction. So worked for a number of large main contractors here in Sydney for about 10 years as a contracts manager. So my day to day was effectively going out and managing risk of the subcontractors and suppliers that bidded on our projects. I'd always had an interest in financial viability, which is essentially the practice of looking at a business's financial statements and I guess operational capacity to make judgment call whether they've got enough goodwill in the business to be able to support the project. Rest assured, most of the service providers in the space were pretty ancient. Spreadsheets, manual processes, really long turnaround times to get any information. So I saw an opportunity back in 2018 to build a digital platform that made it really easy for large main contractors to place requests on their suppliers and subbies. And equally made it easy for suppliers and subbies to share information, so financial statements and information around their pipeline with main contractors. And off the back of that, we've built a pretty large database of privately held information across subbies across Australia. And yeah, our main contractor list is growing. So yeah, it's been a busy time.
yes, more power to you. And that kind of sounds difficult in itself. That sort of a background. How did you get into it? Was it through college? Did you have kind of family in that sort of a background, or yeah, how did you? What was your route into the construction?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for me, I always wanted to have my own business. My dad was a roofer, had his own roofing company for a while. I always wanted to own a building company. And then I went to university and studied civil engineering, figured out I hate doing maths with letters. So I sort of pivoted across to project management, graduated with a degree into construction management, and then, yeah, got straight into the field. And, I think just experiencing some of the inefficiencies in construction and the lack of technology, especially here in Australia, sort of sparked an idea, probably the entrepreneurial side in me, and looking at some of the solutions in North America. I always viewed North America as probably a couple of years ahead of Australia in terms of like tech adoption in the construction
Right.
space. Yeah, eventually saw an opportunity that I wanted to fix personally, and yeah, took the punt and ran with it.
Good man yourself. I see that's interesting to hear you say that. I always kind of thought when I was down in Australia that Australia was really on the forefront of adopting those technologies, and maybe it's come along leaps and bounds in a short stint of time. But I always felt that maybe it was just even the smaller end of the market that the Australian contractors were hungry to adopt technology and kind of yeah look for those better workflows. But definitely, obviously, North America is the Silicon Valleys of these worlds. That they're just, I suppose, a class in their own when they're coming to developing technologies and maybe implementing some of the likes of big. What was the big one there that got acquired by Oracle? Aconex, isn't it?
Yeah, there's Aconex, there's been pay apps. I think you're right. I mean, it really depends. The space that we play, which is really risk management, that's absolutely behind North America. I mean, in Australia, our main contractors or builders mitigate risk is we have bank guarantees, which essentially covers, 10% of the contract value, which is very, very small. In North America, though, they've got insurance policies, which effectively give you coverage across 100% of a contract. So if a subcontractor fails mid-job, these policies give you ultimate protection. More expensive, but in Australia we only cover 10%. So I think it's a
ten
it's a
percent 10% is not a lot when you're looking at yeah, I mean, cost to time delays, and then obviously overall cost of a project. 10% doesn't really cover it doesn't cover the coffee bill.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a pretty big risk takers, I think. But in saying that, I think, going back sort of 10 years ago now, still to this day, true to this day to some extent, a lot of deals are done, handshake deals, go have a beer with a bloke at the pub and, she'll be right attitude. But I think, post COVID here in Australia, hit record high insolvencies. And I kind of think that that period sort of shifted mindset with a lot of large builders who were like, oh, hang on a sec. Supply chain is really important in construction. And so if any time, now's the right time to start doing a bit deeper due diligence on, who we're getting into bed with.
Yeah, sure. And I suppose from your own experience, when you were in that space and now working with Fiable, what is the kind of the big mistakes subbies or general contractors are making that get them into that sort of difficult area that, people, I assume a lot of people aren't doing it maliciously, but, they just, one thing after another gets away from them. So I suppose what's a good thing to look out for from their point of view?
Yeah, it's probably two angles. So I think subcontractors in particular, you know, material prices have jumped significantly, like recently, your wheelhouse, which you mentioned. Um, I think off the back of that as well, a lot of subbies, a lot of them have come from day-to-day trade delivery. They're not business people, but with all respect. And so, I think a lot of the time people take on work without actually understanding if they can deliver it, if they've got the working capital to be able to support the project. Like, can they actually go and fund the purchases of the materials, the increased labor? We know payment terms in construction are really slow, or they can be. And so a lot of companies will take work on, not get paid from another client, which is going to impact their ability to deliver that specific contract. And then it's sort of a cascading effect. And eventually, one too many dominoes fall. And that extent, I think builders in particular, when looking at subcontractors, obviously looking at the financials is a very important one and looking for trends, but tax obligations is a big one. Usually the first person that's not getting paid is the tax man. So if they're accumulating a really big tax bill, that's kind of an early warning sign that, hey, something might not be looking good. Same thing, pipeline as well. If the pipeline's shrinking, if you've got lending facilities that you're borrowing money from and they're fully utilized. So yeah, there's a number of key signs that indicate things probably aren't heading in the right direction, and it's important to have that conversation up front.
Yeah, and that's, I think interesting one. You're right. The last person to get paid is the tax man. So definitely a canary in the coal mine. And you're so right. I mean, I can even think of Keith, the co-founder here, when he was a carpenter. He got burnt by I think it was a larger subcontractor, and he was a smaller carpentry subcontractor, but he got burnt for about 60 or $80,000. And then that hugely negatively impacted his business and his ability, just exactly as you were saying. Like, Jesus, I've already spent $60,000 on the materials, and now I'm in the hole here. So it is that, I suppose, that relationship with everybody, and making sure that you're getting into bed with people who are going to do the right thing. So definitely good to be on top of that. And I suppose when that does happen, do you have any kind of tips or points for people? Like, what's the best course of action once that negative thing happens? What do you go to the bank? Do you get in touch with your priest? What's the best way to get out of a sticky situation?
Yeah, I think definitely going to the church and getting some holy water is probably the best. I guarantee it'll work. I think it depends on the situation, right? I think the best thing is to do is for it not to happen. So I think spending some money up front to actually mitigate the risk early is the best bet. I think we've got some data that suggests every time that a subcontractor fails mid-project, it costs on average 4 times the original subcontract value to deliver it. And so when you're talking about like multi-million-dollar subcontracts, obviously multiply that by 4 because of program delays, reprocurement costs, liquidated damages in the contract. It all adds up. And builders are on very thin margin. We're talking a couple of percent. And so one can derail the whole, profit of the whole business for the whole year. And so I think finding early is probably the best thing. But I think, also it depends on the situation. If you've got, a lot of the time it's working with the subcontractor to complete the project. So whether it's advance payments, whether it's the main contractor paying for materials because the subby can't afford it, whether it's bringing in extra labor that the builder pays for to support the subcontractor to completion. So, the worst sub leaving the site, I think the best thing is finding out early. And the second best thing is helping them get through it and post job.
Yeah, that's definitely, I suppose, very good advice because, if someone's coming in afterwards to try and finish someone else's work, then they themselves can pass on blame and say it hasn't been done to such a standard and I can't be held to this. So yeah, I think definitely too, prevention is better than cure. And then if you're in the situation, finding a way to work with the guys who are familiar with your job site, who are already, up to speed on various bits and bobs and I suppose to help them out and I suppose making the best of a bad situation. So good advice there. I suppose what advice would you have on somebody coming into the industry? They're starting out and they want to make a fist of it. Do you have any advice for new people coming into the industry?
Yeah. Get your hands dirty. I think the best thing to do is go in and experience all facets of construction. I mean, there's so much to learn. There's so many different avenues and paths that you can go down, and the specific niches, sectors, job types, roles. I think you don't know. So it's kind of like when you go to university, right? And very little people know exactly what they want to do. You sort of finish high school and you go, oh, I'll give this a crack, chop and change a little bit. But I think it's kind of the same in construction. Everyone kind of thinks they've got an idea, but everyone then sort of goes off into their own little niches. So I think just having the right attitude and working hard and, trying to find a mentor or someone that can sort of point them in the right direction is a pretty safe bet in my view.
I love it. Yeah, definitely. And then with the big hot topic, whether you're in florists or construction, is technology, AI. What do you think? Do you think the future looks like for construction with technology coming on the way it has? To cut you off there before you answer, I know it's construction has been seen as the last bastion of the analog world. They're dragging us kicking and screaming into technology. So we're slow to adopt it, maybe for the right reasons sometimes, but on other sides, maybe it is for the wronger reasons. But I suppose over the next 5, 10 years, where do you see technology coming in and shaping the industry?
So it's a great point. I'm already seeing early signs of even main contractors here in Australia are now starting to recruit for their own internal AI leads to make sense of their own internal data. So I think the innovative and the forward thinking main contractors are already doing it. They're already starting to see the benefits that they can receive through big data and AI. And I also think, any business now that has a lot of data and has manual processes is absolutely ripe for disruption. So I think construction's a very process orientated industry. There's 1,000 processes, there's 1,000 forms, there's 1,000 repetitive behaviors. And I think each of them in the future, in my view, will have its own point solution that will serve a specific use case. Personally, I think construction's so broad that one tool that does everything. I think that used to be the dream of a lot of main contractors. I think the reality is, from what we're seeing now, they appreciate the fact that that may never be reality. And I think there's great providers out there now that specialize in specific tasks. And as long as those tools and systems talk to each other, so everything's interconnected, I kind of see that as the way of the future. But give it another 10 years, mate, and I reckon everyone will be off the spreadsheets and doing something crazy.
It's going at such a fast pace. It's hard to even wrap your head around 10 years, let alone 1 year, let alone what 10 years might look like. We might all be the robots might be in doing the framing, the fixing, the bricklaying. So we might all be on universal basic income. That'd be nice. I suppose what's on the cards for Fiable? What's what's over the next couple of months, years? Are you guys hoping to expand into Europe, into the North America? How are you guys tracking?
Yeah, I think, we've built up now a pretty solid customer base here in Australia, being really specific in what we do, targeting main contractors in Australia. We started at sort of the top end and, probably got 75% of the top, 20
Um,
builders in.
well, I suppose what's your kind of, yeah, like what are the sort of jobs your clients are completing or taking on?
In terms of like actual work that they're delivering. Look, it ranges from a wide variety of things. I mean, the data centers, a lot of data centers are coming out now, people working on that. OpenAI is just set up here in Australia on the theme of AI. So a lot of data centers, a lot of residential towers and things getting built out. So yeah, I think our focus is continuing to grow in the construction market. We've started to build a pretty big moat around the data set that we've got, and part of the activity, all our customers use the same subby. So we're starting to see a lot of activity in the platform that we can turn to alerts that we can go and share with customers to help inform risk. So just continue to build out the platform here, and there's a few opportunities offshore that we're exploring, in the US and the Middle East at the moment. So
Very exciting. Well, best of luck and thanks for coming on. And sure, well, we will keep in touch and make sure we're going in the right direction.
amazing. Good to chat. Thank you, mate. Thanks for
Well,
having me.